Hi, I'm Chef Raphael, and today's episode of Baking with Chef Raphael, I'll show you how to make a simple white bread. It's nice on the inside, you can see, and crusty on the outside. Now, it's a very delicious recipe and very simple. You'll see the ingredients. Let's get started. So if you're new to the show, subscribe to the channel so that you are notified whenever I have a new recipe. And what I love about today's recipe is that it's simple. It only has 4 ingredients: water, salt, yeast, and flour. So for the water, you need it at 50 degrees Celsius. How do you know that? It's either by having a probe thermometer like this one. Right now it's at 48. 48 is still fine. Because what usually happens when it comes to yeast, it needs some warmth and something to work on. In this case, it's the flour. Salt is for completing the flavor, so you just mix all this together. And if you don't have a probe thermometer, and I'm sure this is not something that many of you would have, you can just tell by, if you dip your finger in at 50 degrees, it will not be too hot, it will not be hot to burn, and it will not be on the warm side, it will be on the lukewarm side. So we'll mix the yeast and the salt first, and then create a well at the center where we'll pour the water. So I'm using a wooden spatula to first mix the water into the flour and add slightly more, so that's good. Now, to make sure that all this flour gets into the dough, what I try and do is use my fingers to, like that. You press the dough, and what I'm literally doing is making sure that the flour gets into the dough. So that's the technique I usually use. Now at this stage, what I'll do, I'll actually transfer the mixture to the surface, so that I have more room to knead the dough. And the technique that I usually use is roll it into a strip like that and then turn it. So I'll repeat this process for about 4 to 5 minutes. All you just need to do is roll it, turn it, and then roll it again. So this is ready. You can see it's nice and smooth, and it's not sticking to the surface. Make it into a ball like that, and I'll place it back to the bowl that I was using, and then take a plastic wrap and cover it. The idea about covering is to make sure there's no air getting into the dough. So when you cover it like this, we're actually going to place it in a warm place. So you know it's ready, it was already proved when it's double its size. So it will rise and almost fill up this bowl. So it has taken about 30 minutes to double in size. Remember what I said is that it needs to double in size. The next stage is, after this, is to put it in a baking tin. Just a little bit of the oil, and then brush it all over the surface, the bottom, on the sides. So this will prevent it from sticking, and also it will also help in the cooking. The bottom side will actually be nicely browned. Now if you leave it too long to rise, then it actually takes longer than it has. What will happen is that it will start to ferment, and then it will even change the taste. So right now what I want to do is to shape it into the size, the length of the baking tin. The idea is just to place it inside your baking tin, just like that. Make sure it has touched the whole surface and also on the sides. We'll cover it with a cling film plastic wrap, because now we want it to rise again And then after this stage is when now we'll actually put it in the oven. Apply some oil on the surface of the plastic wrap, especially what I'm doing is applying on this side, and then I'll turn the paper. I'm applying it like that, and then turn it like that. Because what will happen is that the bread will start rising, and as it starts rising, it will touch, you want it to rise until it forms a dome, and it will start touching the plastic wrap. And if you don't apply oil, when you go to remove it like this, what will happen is that the dough will easily puncture and then deflate, and we don't want that. So we are just making it non-stick. It will take about 20 minutes, 20-30 minutes, again depending on the warmth of your kitchen, until it actually rises, and then it forms a small dome on top of the baking tin. So as you can see, the bread has risen. Now, at least you want it to rise to the extent where it forms a curve on the top, like we know bread usually does. Now, if you don't do that, what will happen is that if you don't let it rise, enough time to rise to form at least that dough, what will happen is that it will have a dense looking bread. And now, when it comes to removing the plastic film, remember you put some oil. Now at least that will help when you're removing it. And now we'll place it in a hot oven. We'll start at 220 degrees, and then after about 10 minutes we'll reduce the heat to 180 for it now to continue baking. So the bread is ready. It was even cooled down. It took about 23 minutes to bake. How you know it's cooked is that it will actually start browning on top evenly, and as you can see, when it's fully browned on all sides. The good thing about making your own bread, you can control the quality. Now this one doesn't have any sugar. It's simple. I chose this recipe because of how simple it is, and yet it produces very good quality bread. I have an online course of how to make bread. I'll put it on the link on the description below. So take the course so that you also learn more about bread. I have brown bread and other types of bread on that course. I've been your host, Chef Raphael. Until next time, I'm signing out. Goodbye.